Renee didn't plan to fall in love again, especially not with the man she hired to help her end a love she thought was already dead. She was 36 and tired in the quiet kind of way most people don't notice. To the outside world, she was a sharp, composed marketing executive in El Paso, mother of one, married for nearly a decade to a decent man, the kind of life that drew no suspicion, the kind of marriage that didn't raise red flags. But inside the house, and inside herself, there was nothing left moving. Michael wasn't cruel, he didn't yell, didn't cheat, didn't hit, he paid bills on time, loaded the dishwasher, but he didn't ask questions anymore, didn't touch her, didn't laugh. They hadn't made eye contact during dinner in over 6 months. Sometimes Renee sat at the edge of their bed while he slept, wondering if silence could rot something from the inside out. When she decided to file for divorce, it wasn't dramatic. It was like finally turning off a light that had been flickering for years. She found Daniel through a colleague's recommendation. He was 41, experienced, and known for being surgical with negotiations but humane with clients. His office was sleek but not sterile. A bookshelf lined with actual books, not just legal codes, but novels. A small cactus on his desk. A framed photo of a golden retriever. No humans. When Renee walked in for the first meeting, she didn't expect to feel anything. She'd rehearsed her words, rehearsed her posture. She was here for business. Daniel stood, shook her hand firmly but gently, and said, "My job is to make sure you don't settle for less than your freedom." Something in her chest pulsed. She sat down. They went over timelines, assets, custody options. He was methodical but not cold. Patient. He looked her in the eye when she spoke. Didn't flinch when her voice cracked talking about how her husband had become a roommate she feared she couldn't grieve. As she gathered her documents at the end of the meeting, Daniel said, "You're doing something hard. That doesn't mean it's wrong." Renee nodded, left, and didn't realize until she got into her car that her hands were trembling. That night, she couldn't sleep. Her mind replayed phrases, expressions, not the content of the meeting, but the way he had looked at her. Not with desire, with recognition, like he saw through the skin and saw the silence she had been living with. The next morning, Michael made coffee and didn't ask where she was going. They sat in the kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator louder than any words between them. When she opened her inbox, Daniel had already followed up. "Attached are the documents we discussed. No rush. Take care of yourself first." She stared at the email longer than she should have. Renee told herself it was just relief. Just professionalism, just someone finally talking to her like she mattered. But it wasn't just that. Over the next few weeks, the case progressed. Custody plans, division of property. Daniel was steady, present, available. When Renee emailed late one night after a particularly empty evening, she didn't expect a reply until morning. But it came within minutes. "You're not alone in this, Renee. That matters." It was a simple sentence. But her eyes welled up. She clicked on his name, hovered, then closed her laptop. She couldn't name what she was feeling. Not yet. But she knew it wasn't about Michael. Not anymore. It was about the space Michael had left, and someone else quietly, unintentionally, starting to fill it. She didn't see it as dangerous. She saw it as alive. For the first time in years, she felt like someone saw her and didn't look away. The line between professional and personal began to blur with the softest gestures. Daniel started asking questions outside the bounds of legal forms. "Have you eaten today? Are you sleeping any better?" Questions no one had asked her in years, not even Michael. Renee answered honestly. She found herself looking forward to his emails, reading his words like they carried something warmer than law. One night, after they'd filed the preliminary divorce paperwork, Daniel asked if she wanted to grab a drink, just to mark the beginning of your freedom. He said with a grin that wasn't playful, but kind. She hesitated, but then she said yes. They met at a quiet bar on the east side of El Paso. Not crowded, not romantic, but intimate enough. The conversation was easy, no talk of courts or custody. Just music, childhood, favorite books. And then, The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was an invitation. He walked her to her car. And when she turned to say goodnight, the kiss happened. It was brief. No promises. No rush. Just two people standing too close to pretend anymore. Renee drove home with the windows down. Heart pounding. Shame creeping up her spine. But not enough to make her regret it. She didn't tell anyone, not even herself, not in clear terms. She labeled it as a moment. One that wouldn't repeat. But it did. Daniel texted her more. Nothing explicit. Just messages late at night. Thinking of you. I hope tomorrow is gentle. I know you hate mornings. Hang in there. He started suggesting they meet more often, at his office. But outside of meetings. To discuss documents. To review things that could have been emailed. And Renee, every time, said yes. At home, she began guarding her phone. Turning off notifications. Deleting messages. She told herself it was to protect the case. Michael noticed. He began asking more questions. Why are you working so late? Who keeps texting you after 10? Renee deflected, smiled, lead gently. Michael grew quiet, then suspicious, then something worse, calculating. He didn't fight her, didn't confront her, but one night, while she was in the shower, he went through her phone. He didn't find everything, but he found enough. The next day, Renee came home to find Michael speaking with another man in their living room. A lawyer. A week later, Daniel got a letter from that same lawyer. Michael had hired new representation and submitted a motion to investigate possible infidelity during marriage, grounds to contest custody and asset division under Texas law. Daniel called Renee immediately. We need to be careful now. This could shift the balance. She panicked. Will this ruin everything? He paused. Not if we're smart, but we need distance. Renee's chest tightened. It felt like a breakup. Daniel reassured her. This won't affect your case. Not if we keep things clean moving forward. But it already had. She felt it in the way Michael looked at her across the dinner table, like a man who had just realized what he'd lost. And now knew how to take it back. Every conversation with Daniel became quieter, shorter, less personal, less warm, and yet, the damage had already been done. Renee tried to pull herself together, to refocus on the divorce, the custody plans, her son, but at night, she still reached for her phone, still waited for a text that didn't come as often anymore. The pressure was mounting, she knew it, she could feel the clock ticking. The line had been crossed. And now, someone else was drawing the new ones, and this time, they weren't in her favor. The hearing was supposed to be routine. Paperwork, dates, asset declarations. Instead, Michael's lawyer walked in with a thick folder labeled Exhibits A through M. Inside, printed screenshots of late-night texts. Photos from a parking garage camera, Daniel and Renee, embracing. Timestamped 2 weeks before the official divorce filing, and a voice recording, a phone call Renee hadn't even remembered. Her voice laughing, Daniel saying, "You make everything feel lighter." The courtroom didn't gasp. It didn't need to. Michael's lawyer calmly slid the evidence to the judge. His client sat beside him, composed, even empathetic in appearance, like a man disappointed, not vindictive, like someone who had tried. The shift was immediate. The judge raised her eyebrows. The clerk looked uncomfortable. Renee's stomach dropped. By the time court recessed, Daniel was already gone. Renee stepped into the hallway to find her phone buzzing. A message from Daniel. "I've been asked to step down from the case. I'm sorry." She felt the floor tilt. Later that evening, she sat alone in the parking lot of his office building. She didn't text. She just waited. He came out the side door, holding a box of files. "You're leaving," she said. "They're reviewing me for ethical violation." Daniel replied, "This isn't just about us anymore." Her voice cracked. "You said this wouldn't ruin the case." "It didn't. We did." She stepped closer. "Then fix it. Testify. Tell them it started after I filed. Tell them it wasn't." Renee. His voice was soft but final. "I was your lawyer. And that's exactly why I can't protect you anymore." She didn't cry right away, just stood there, air leaving her body in small, broken exhales. Daniel walked past her, opened his car door. He didn't look back. Renee sat down on the curb, watched his taillights disappear. The next hearing was worse. Michael's team pushed to have Renee's behavior considered in custody arrangements. They argued it showed poor judgment, instability, lack of respect for court process. Renee didn't speak. Her new lawyer did what she could, but the advantage was gone. She'd lost control of the narrative. The divorce was no longer about ending something broken. It was about who broke it first. For the next week, she didn't leave her house. Daniel didn't reach out. Her phone buzzed with updates from her new attorney. Motions filed, adjustments proposed, none in her favor. By Friday, she showed up at Daniel's apartment. She didn't plan to, she just drove. When he opened the door, he looked tired, not surprised. "I shouldn't have come," she said. "No," he said quietly. "But you did." She handed him a small envelope. Inside, a photo of her and her son at the park. Smiling, the kind of photo you send someone you think will still be there later. "Just remember, this wasn't all a mistake." Daniel took the photo but didn't speak. She turned and left. The door shut behind her with the softest click. That night, Renee finally allowed herself to cry. Not for losing Daniel, but for not seeing the edge until she was already falling. The custody ruling came in quietly. Renee sat alone at her kitchen table when her attorney called. 6 months of supervised visitation. The voice on the other end said gently, "Every other weekend." The judge cited breach of marital obligation as the reason. Renee didn't argue, didn't cry, she simply wrote it down on a notepad, the pen carving too hard into the paper. Michael didn't celebrate, he didn't gloat. At the hearing, he simply asked for what the court would give, nothing more. He looked at her once, almost sadly, then turned away. Daniel never showed. 3 weeks later, Renee heard he had taken a position at a firm in Dallas. He didn't leave contact information. No forwarding email, no goodbye. It felt surgical, intentional. She tried to be okay. She followed the rules, showed up to the visitation center on time, brought snacks, brought books, played board games with her son in a bright room with plastic chairs and too many posters. But Ethan had changed. He still hugged her, still smiled, but there was something guarded in his eyes, like he understood more than he should have. One Sunday, after their session ended, Renee walked to the park they used to visit together. She sat on a bench near the swings, the afternoon sun warm against her arms. In her lap was a letter, postmarked from Dallas. The handwriting was unmistakable. She opened it with trembling fingers. "I never meant to be your last mistake. But I might have been. We broke something we couldn't afford to touch. I left because I couldn't fix it without making it worse. I hope you find quiet again. And I hope he forgives you." No name, no return address, just the words. She folded the letter slowly, pressed it against her chest, then set it beside her on the bench like it had weight. Across the field, she saw Michael walking with Ethan. They were heading to the parking lot. Her son looked taller from this distance. Older. Renee didn't call out. She just watched. Her eyes welled, but the tears didn't fall right away. They came only when Ethan turned, just slightly, and looked back, then kept walking. Not out of anger, not out of hate, but because some part of him had learned that love could be temporary. She buried her face in her hands. It wasn't Daniel she mourned. It was the version of herself she had lost. The one who held her child's full trust. The one who hadn't gambled it all for something that came dressed as freedom but arrived with consequences. The wind picked up. A page from the letter fluttered slightly before settling again. She stayed on that bench long after they were gone. Not waiting, just learning how to live with silence. And with the price of timing. Sometimes, the most painful goodbyes don't echo. They whisper. Renee's story wasn't just about losing love. It was about losing timing. Trust, and a part of herself she may never get back. But not every affair begins with a secret kiss or a broken promise. Some begin in places no one dares to look, not even the mirror. Next, we moved to Dallas, where Jared seemed to have the perfect life, a beautiful wife, a stable home, and a picture-perfect marriage. Until one confession, made on the night of their anniversary, shattered everything, because Jared's affair wasn't with a woman. It was with her identical twin brother. Coming up next, Jared from Dallas, his affair wasn't with a woman, but with her twin brother.